Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. So a lot has been happening in Star Citizen this past week, and I want to run through it because there's some stuff the community is pretty fired up about right now, and some of it is kind of wild. So let's start with the roadmap, because this is a good chunk of what the community is talking about right now. CIG came out and said they're keeping this week's roadmap update light because they're still ramping up Alpha 4.9 internally. The plan is to share the first few cars for the next major update in around 2 weeks, which puts us somewhere in early to mid-June before we actually get a proper picture of what 4.9 is going to look like. Alpha 4.8.1, however, is still estimated for late May, so there is a minor patch coming before any of that. But if you were expecting an Alpha 4.9 roadmap reveal this week, it's not happening. They want to finalize things internally before they share it with the community, because as we know previously, when they shared stuff too early and it got delayed or cancelled, we were very frustrated. So I actually prefer this way of releasing the roadmap update rather than delaying or removing stuff. So we'll have to wait and see what's going on with 4.9 in around 2 weeks. Now there's also this whole situation circling on Reddit right now about players getting banned for duping. And I want to be upfront, nothing has been confirmed by CIG, there's been no official statement, this is community chatter. People are posting saying they've been hit with bans and temporary bans, and there's been a decent amount of back and forth about it on the subreddit. Nobody knows yet if this is targeted wave or some kind of moderation sweep or just people comparing coincidences, which I don't think so. However, CIG hasn't addressed it at all as far as anyone can tell, so treat it as a rumor for now. But if you are duping, don't do it, because you might risk getting banned. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now the actual ship stuff. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting this week. The Aegis Tiburon went flight ready on May 20th, and this thing is built for one job and one job only: hunting capital ships. It's got a spine-mounted beam weapon that the pilot controls directly, 4 large caliber lateral turrets, that is a mouthful, and a rear anti-fighter gun to cover its back. So you're not taking this out to swap fighters. Guys, I've tried this ship and I tried to run it solo. I could not at all do anything to small fighters. You cannot. The maneuverability of the small fighters compared to the Tiburon is insane. So the laser doesn't hit anything. You have to park and then go to the turret, assuming you're alone, and then kill the ship if you could, and then you could do anything else. But it is good for killing bigger ships solo because you are in control of the laser beam, which is perfect for killing larger ships, right? However, in order for you to kill the larger ships, I personally think you should disable the ship first. So try to hit the engines, try to hit the power plant, try to hit the critical areas, because if you don't, you're probably gonna die before you cripple the ship. That's just my opinion. Now, the Tiburon came in at $700 war bond and $775 standard on RSI, which for a ship with this kind of purpose-built anti-capital loadout, the community has been reacting pretty well to that price point. The second thing I wanted to say is that it's really similar to the Hammerhead. So I don't understand why they didn't call it a variant of the Hammerhead, because it's almost identical with some minor differences. But you know, if you played with the Hammerhead before, you're gonna have an easy time, using the Tiburon, because it's basically almost the same. But let's talk about the Odin. So Anvil dropped the Odin Battlecruiser concept, and this is the one that's been creating the most noise by far this week. The ship sits between the Javelin and the Bengal in scale. CIG has described it as the last planned concept sale and said it closes out all vehicle stretch goals from the original crowdfunding campaign over a decade ago. So in a way, this is a milestone ship, not just a big ship. But that's where it gets wild, the price. The Odin went on sale at $5,000 war bond, or $5,900, and it wasn't even available for everyone. Access was restricted to members of what CIG called the Odin Founders Club, which they hand-selected based on in-game metrics like game time, ships owned, and concierge status. On top of all that, players who wanted to be considered could send in a concierge ticket, basically a written application of up to 999 words explaining why they want to capital a battlecruiser, and then sales went out in waves. every 4 hours starting at 4 p.m. UTC on May 24th, running through midday May 25th, with limited stock per wave and no disclosed total on how many were actually available. These are the times that people were going to be able to purchase the ship. And Reddit has been going off about this. People who got accepted are sharing their experiences. People who don't are talking about what the criteria actually means in practice. And there's a broader conversation about what it even means to sell a concept ship at $5,000 with invite-only access. Some people think it's a genuine, interesting way to make a capital ship feel like a real responsibility in the game. Other people think it's just an extreme monetization move dressed up in lore language. And you can kind of see both sides of it depending on how you look at it. Also this week, CIG pushed out their first experimental haptic system support. So if you're running immersive hardware like haptic vests, haptic seats, that kind of stuff, there's now an initial build for that in the game. It's experimental, so it's not going to be perfect out of the gate, but it's a step in the right direction. And coming up, there's still a Star Citizen live Q&A on the Anvil Odin, so if you want to hear from the devs directly on design philosophy, crew requirements, all of that, that's the one to tune into. DefenseCon is also still live through May 27th, and the free fly is still running, after it was delayed. So if you've got people in your orbit who's been thinking about trying the game, the window is still open, and you can use my referral link below if you want to purchase the game for extra credits and goodies. That's gonna be it for this week. Drop a like if this helped. It does more for the channel than you think. Subscribe so you catch the weekly updates, and let me know down in the comments, did you apply for the Odin Founders Club? I'm very curious about that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.